Hello and welcome to Audio Johnapedia number 42. It is August 31st, 2014. I am John, and here on Audio Johnapedia number 42, we're going to do a little preview of the National Football League. For those of you who are unaware, the National Football League is a sports league that's primarily contested in the United States, playing the sport of American football. In order to preview this, I have a special guest with me. Goes by the name of Jason. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm good. Thanks for having me again.
All right. And yes, Jason's been on the show previously. You may recognize his soothing voice from previous incarnations. The last time we did a sports preview, we previewed the NHL playoffs. We both predicted that the Blackhawks would beat the Blues in 6 games, which is exactly what happened. So obviously we have a little bit of expertise on subjects of sports. Now, are you familiar with the National Football League?
I have heard of it. I unfortunately played fantasy football for way too much of my life. So yeah, I like to think I'm pretty good. Not as good as I am with the National Hockey League, which we did earlier. So,
but you're familiar with the sport. You know the basic rules and.
I am familiar. Yes.
Okay. Well, there's actually. I'm not sure if you know, the NFL is actually a very popular league. It's actually the most popular league in the country in terms of television ratings and general fan interest. So there's actually quite a few previews of the NFL out there. So we're going to do something a little bit different for this one. For those of you who are unaware, there's a sensation that's sweeping the Twitterverse, primarily between the two of us. It goes by the name of haiku Twitter.
Oh, yes, haiku Twitter.
Should I explain haiku Twitter, or should you explain it?
I mean, I'll take a crack at it.
Go for
Haiku
it.
Twitter, it's a initiative that we've been starting. If you're not familiar with what a haiku is a poem that consists of 3 lines. The first line consisting of 5 syllables, second one consisting of 7 syllables, and the third line, once again, only has 5 syllables in it. The idea behind haiku Twitter is tweeting thoughts, funny feelings, whatever you have, in haiku form. And like John said, me and John have kind of been the pioneers of this wonderful craze.
And I don't want to claim that we invented haiku Twitter.
No.
We may have invented the hashtag haiku Twitter, but I don't think we invented the concept of writing a haiku on Twitter.
No. Actually, I found after writing like a bunch of haikus and originally not using the hashtag haiku Twitter, just haiku, I got retweeted a bunch by this like English Institute thing that does nothing but retweet people who tweet haikus.
I haven't gotten retweeted by them, so maybe mine aren't as good as yours. I'm not sure what that is.
I am pretty good at it.
You are certainly. Not that I'm being competitive or anything, but anyway, we think that what we're going to do is we're going to tell a haiku about all 32 teams in the National Football League. We're going to give a haiku Super Bowl prediction, and then we have some questions from listeners that we are also going to answer in the haiku form. I feel like this will make things fun and exciting. And anything you want to add before we get rolling?
Let's get to it, man.
All right. So we're gonna go division by division. We'll start with the AFC East. The first team alphabetically for the AFC East is the Buffalo Bills. Would you like to start with the Buffalo Bills haiku?
Sure, I can. And the theme of this is the only division I actually have a theme with. Quarterback is kind of the theme for this division for me.
Okay. Themes are good in poetry. They help to establish flow, overall momentum of thoughts, ideas, hopes, dreams.
All right.
Go ahead.
Let me get my poetry reading voice on. It's for the Buffalo Bills. E.J. Manuel. Sammy Watkins will only play in 7 games.
Interesting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and read mine, and then as soon as I'm done reading mine, as soon as both of us have read ours about a given team, we'll speak in sort of a non-haiku sense. So those of you who aren't as initiated to haiku Twitter will be able to sort of get a translation of it.
So we'll give you some analysis.
We're not going to just totally immerse you without any sort of practice.
Right.
Okay. EJ to Sammy. Maybe legitimate threat, but in a few years. So we both started off with speaking of E.J. Manuel, the quarterback for the Bills. Seems like neither of us necessarily that optimistic about them.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the AFC East as a whole, and I don't think offensively they can compete. Manuel, he had flashes in his rookie season. I think Sammy Watkins will make him better. But as I alluded to, it may be a bold prediction, but the ribs are going to be a concern for Watkins, and coach up there has been very cautious with Sammy Watkins. And like you said in your haiku, down the road is maybe where they need to be looking. So I think that even a smaller injury may hold him out more, almost like it was a preseason, than if they would to risk further injury to their star wide receiver.
Yeah, I actually wrote mine a little bit before the Sammy Watkins injuries became necessarily considered that enormous of a factor. And the point remains that even if E.J. Manuel and Sammy Watkins are healthy and they play up to their potential, they still don't really have a whole lot else going. I mean, they have C.J. Spiller, they have Mario Williams on the defensive end, but there's not a whole lot there that makes me think that they're going to be any sort of like threat for a playoff spot or anything like that.
I think the defense will be pretty good. I don't think the defense is necessarily going to be the worst. I mean, I'm not talking Seahawks quality defense, but I don't think the defense might be able to keep them in a few of their games.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be wretched or anything, but yeah, I'm bored already talking about the Bills.
Yeah, so let's move on.
All right, we got a lot of teams to get to. Next up, alphabetically, is the Miami Dolphins.
Miami Dolphins, all right. Ryan Tannehill will lead the Dolphins to a division title.
It's going to be hard to follow up that boldness, but I'll go ahead anyway. Defense is okay. Tannehill's underrated. They're still Ambien.
Two opposing views there, it looks
like.
All
right. I guess I'll start with my view, which is that the Dolphins they have a little bit going. I do think Ryan Tannehill is underrated, and the whole card on him whenever he got drafted was that he was sort of a project player, and he's overall played fairly well. And
so they had way more passing yards last year, I think.
Well, as I mentioned before, they are Ambien. Like, they are the embodiment of just a boring team that nobody particularly cares about, but that doesn't mean that they don't have productive players. Part of the fact that they're boring means that they aren't, like, historically terrible either.
Right. I think, and I don't necessarily think, I'm like you. I think Tannehill is incredibly underrated. I think he's a good quarterback, and a lot of it I just think about teams that are the quote-unquote class of the division. I think they might just catch them sleeping. I could see Miami easily winning 10, 11 games this year, because when 4 of your games are going to be against the Bills and Jets.
That is helpful.
I mean, that does help, because I'm not very high on either of them.
Yeah, so. And I don't think the Dolphins are going to finish in last in the division or anything. I just don't think they're going to win the division, but apparently you do. So.
I do, and okay. I've been bold in these first two. I promise they're not all that bold.
I mean, obviously we'll talk about New England in a second here, which is the defending champions. They've been champions for a while, but you have them getting dethroned.
Dethroning the champs.
I'm curious on your overall sentiment on the Patriots, so why don't you go ahead and go with that?
I guess we'll go to the Patriots next. All right. The great Tom Brady will throw for more yards this year than Peyton Manning, and yet they lose the division. That last part was not part of the haiku. But
I can see, it feels like if Tom Brady were to throw more yards than Peyton Manning, it would probably be because they were behind in a lot of games and forced to throw, so.
It's true.
This is because you have Tom Brady on your fantasy team, isn't it?
Actually, I wrote this haiku before I did my fantasy drafts.
Okay.
So.
All right, so.
I will say, however, Tom Brady in fantasy drafts, on a side note, is going incredibly late.
Oh, I agree with that.
For the production he puts up every year.
I agree, and had you not snagged him in our fantasy draft, I may have been on that train. But we're not here to talk about fantasy draft. We're here to talk about the NFL and haikus.
That's a different time.
But do you think that the Patriots are going to be at least close to the playoffs? Do you think they're going to fall apart or anything?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and when I say Dolphins win the division title, I'm talking either by a game or win a tiebreaker over the Patriots. I still think the Patriots are a playoff team, and if they came up in a playoff situation, I still like the experience. I'm a big experience factor over youth. So, what about what are your haiku sentiments about?
Yeah, I mean, I just realized that we discussed the team before my haikus. I feel like we're breaking our own rules here, but I guess we wrote the rules.
So. Yeah, rules are made to be broken.
All right. Belichick and Tom, sustained evil and greatness, will not miss a beat. I hate picking the Patriots because they truly are the worst, but they're good, and they're always good, and it's hard for me to imagine them not winning the division. I think that's partially because the division's bad. I don't think that they're going to, for instance, win the AFC. But I mean, they did with kind of a mediocre team that didn't get a lot of attention last year make the conference championship game. They just they do it, and it's not exciting, it's not fun, and everybody hates it because the Patriots are evil incarnate. But
yeah,
I mean, they're productive.
It's what Belichick and Brady have done since Brady's taken over. They win football games.
I remember whenever, kind of early in the Patriots' run, like probably around when they were winning their second and third Super Bowls, there was this sentiment that Tom Brady was just a system quarterback. But if you look at the receivers, other than Randy Moss, he's had in the last decade, like, it's kind of laughable. Like, Julian Edelman was a college quarterback, and he was his top receiver last year.
Yeah.
His top tight ends last year, one of them went to jail for murder, and one of them ended up being hurt most of the year, including for the playoffs, and he still made the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, and I mean, the running backs he has around him are guys who you've never heard of. I mean, but that's what Belichick always seems to find these guys, and
I will have you know that I have heard of Stephen Ridley and Shane Vereen from their college days, and that's the problem. They're not that good, and yet here they are every year.
And they're productive, and and the offensive line. Now, it will be interesting to see how the Logan Mankins trade does affect that offensive line. I think Belichick will plug another guy in, and they'll be fine. But
between Logan Mankins and I don't know what to think about Patriots linemen that I never really have considered as particularly great players, but I've watched enough of their games that their names are ingrained in my head.
Yeah, and I think part of that's the quarterback, though, too, is why they get ingrained in your head.
Yeah.
You have a good quarterback, oh, they must have a great line in front of them.
Overall production, in spite of the fact that their running has never been that great, but, whatever wins for you. All right, so the last team we have for the AFC East are the New York Jets.
Woo! Geno will surprise. Decker will not be as good. Sans Peyton Manning.
All right. Rex Ryan is great, but his offense really sucks. Mediocre tops. I think we have similar sentiments here.
And first of all, when I say Geno will surprise, I think it's because when I looked at him and everything, I just think he's an awful, awful quarterback to be starting in the NFL.
So he's going to surprise us by continuing to start throughout the season instead of Michael Vick, or what's?
Yeah, I mean, I think, he's just. I think he'll start all 16 games. I'll make that statement.
Oh, all right.
Unless there's an injury, I don't think he'll lose his job for lack of performance. Because
he got his job through last year. It's hard to imagine him being worse than last year.
Right, and he does have Eric Decker. Granted, I think Eric Decker's a receiver whose stock shot up tenfold because he played with Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
We've seen it for years with people, but
I'm always hesitant to put a lot of faith into receivers who leave in free agency or just generally go to another team. If you're going from Peyton Manning to Geno Smith, it really gives me pause because, realistically, even if we want to be a little kinder to Geno Smith, nobody's claiming that he's Peyton Manning here.
No, not even close.
I'm going to talk about Rex Ryan for a second here because I said he was great, and I will say that I think he is maybe not he's a really good coach, though. The Jets almost made the playoffs last year with no particular logic behind that whatsoever. The defenses that he coaches are always good, even if they don't have a ton of talent on them. And the offense, even as bad as their offense was last year, and it was bad.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and, he did it. He took... look how far he got with Sanchez at quarterback some of those years. I don't know. Yeah. Anyone in their right mind would say he's not a good coach. And he's great at press conferences. His press conferences are great to watch.
He's the opposite of Belichick, and that can be taken in good and bad directions. Generally speaking, the problem with Rex Ryan as far as public perception of him is people think of him as being sort of a joke. It doesn't mean he's a bad coach or anything like that. It just means he's got sort of a goofier personality. And people are totally tolerant of Pete Carroll acting in sort of a strange way in press conferences because his team wins. So if the Jets, get to a Super Bowl, eventually there will be a little kinder words of him, I think.
I think it's just fat man discrimination.
Yeah.
Personally.
fat man discrimination is real, and it's sad that it happens. But look at Mike Holmgren. Look at Andy Reid. They're successful NFL coaches. There's
Romeo Crennel, great defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if Romeo Crennel is necessarily the guy to be.
Not as a head coach.
Might as well throw out Charlie Weiss in there while we're at it.
Mark Mangino. Yeah.
All right, though. So you're picking the Dolphins to win the division.
I'll pick the Dolphins to win, with the Patriots second and making the playoffs.
I'm going to say that the Patriots win the division, make the playoffs. I'm going to say that there's no wild cards out of this division, though. So let's move on to the AFC North. I didn't actually alphabetize mine, so I'm just off the top of my head remembering. Oh, yeah. Okay, that. All right. So the Baltimore Ravens are the first team alphabetically according to City.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Fire away.
Hey, there's Joe Flacco. No Ray Rice to start the year. Defense question mark.
Question mark was wow, interesting. Okay.
I actually have question mark written out as 3 syllables, the actual words.
Yeah, I probably would have had to do that too, or else I would have been afraid I would have just said defense with a questioning sort of tone.
Defense?
Yeah, defense we say as we watch a replay of Colton Wong flailing for what appeared to be a pop-up of some sort in the Cardinals game. All right, so anyway, here's the Baltimore one I have. Still some support cast. Flacco's albatross contract may doom them quite soon. I just wanted to say albatross in haiku. I started with albatross and worked my way backwards.
Yeah.
Oh, and it looks like Wong's hurt now too. So this is going to be a take on a very grim tone if this turns out to be bad.
Well, let's get back. Let's move on, or else we'll be here forever.
He is moving. Let's be clear here. We're not. If anyone somehow listening live, it doesn't appear to be a life-threatening thing. So
that's good.
Okay.
All right. So I don't know. I think kind of when I said hey, there's Joe Flacco. If you look, I have exclamation points after it, which is sort of sarcastic. Is the way I intended. It's like, oh look, there's Joe Flacco. I mean, I don't think. I think this is going to be the worst Ravens team we've seen in a while. Unfortunately for them. Like you said, still some supporting cast. I've never been a big believer in Torrey Smith as far as, because he would be, I guess, their top receiver.
Yeah, he's more of a big play threat.
Yeah, which, when they played the Rams a couple of years ago and he just ran 2 streak patterns right down the middle of the field and had 60-yard touchdowns on him.
He was cheating. He had to be cheating in that game because Torrey Smith torched the Rams to unbelievable extents in 2011.
Yeah, but, I really think the defense, it's sort of in that rebuild mode because, the old staples are pretty much all gone. I have to keep reminding myself, I thought about the defense, and for some reason, the first name that popped in my head was Chris McAllister, and I'm way behind the times on that one.
I thought I was behind the times for thinking of Ray Lewis first.
Yeah, Ray Lewis. Then I thought, and Ed Reed, all those guys. So
they still have Suggs, right? They're not.
No, yeah.
Nothing,
and I guess is Nada still on the D-line as well.
I assume so.
Yeah.
We've clearly done our homework for this preview, which is mostly just writing haikus. We're not claiming to be football experts here. This isn't like whenever I had the World Cup preview and we were clearly established experts, and apparently Jason listened to it.
Yeah, all right. Very good. But yeah, so I think Ravens down year for him for sure.
Yeah, I felt the need to bring up Joe Flacco because Joe Flacco's, I think, one of the internet's favorite players in a very ironic way because of the Joe Flacco eliteness question. Which Joe Flacco's clearly not an elite quarterback.
No.
It's clearly an insane thought to think it. But the problem is, I think it started with Drew Brees. People thought, okay, well, if Drew Brees wins a Super Bowl, then we can say that he's an elite quarterback. He won a Super Bowl, was called elite. But he wasn't called elite because he won the Super Bowl. He was called elite because he won the Super Bowl on top of putting up 5,000 yards a year with 30 or 40 touchdown passes. And then it continued the next year with Aaron Rodgers, who was also sort of on that precipice.
Right.
And then it happened with Eli Manning, and it was sort of like, we really, okay, fine.
Right.
In the last few years, it's been Joe Flacco and Russell Wilson, and it's just, at this point, a joke.
Right, and I think the biggest counter-argument to that is, look at, before Flacco, look at the last Super Bowl winning quarterback for Baltimore.
Trent Dilfer.
Elite.
Trent Dilfer has won more Super Bowls than Dan Marino and Dan Fouts combined, and you can never take that away from him.
No, and nor should you.
let's just keep it in proper context. I'm of the belief that there's like 3 or 4 elite quarterbacks in the NFL, maybe, and you can win a Super Bowl without an elite quarterback.
Yeah.
It helps to have one, but it also helps to have like a really good defense or a bunch of really good receivers or good offensive line or a good long snapper for that matter. I spent a lot of time analyzing long snappers, and it's going to be a big part of my Super Bowl pick if you guys just hold on and listen.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, I also don't think the Ravens are going to make the playoffs, and the Flacco contract, as is the case with a lot of quarterback contracts, is eventually going to doom them, because Joe Flacco, I think he's a generally good quarterback. I don't have any problem with him. I just, like, you can find another player of his caliber rather than paying him $20 million a year. If he was really worth $20 million a year, he would be able to go find another team that would be willing to pay him that much if the Ravens weren't willing to. But since the Ravens offered, we can't know for sure.
Right.
All right, so the next team then are the Cincinnati Bengals.
The Bengals. Andy Dalton breaks out. Defense better than some think. AFC North champs.
Okay, when you say he breaks out, is that a joke because he's a ginger and he has pale skin and is more susceptible to freckling and
Double entendre.
acne? Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Just a matter of time before the ginger goes big. To extent, time's now. And I agree with your sentiment that they're going to win this AFC North division, which, I mean, they won it last year, so it's not like it would be
Right.
a wild
This isn't
prediction.
a bold prediction, but, I mean, I think, now we have to see the effect of Dalton, like we saw with Flacco after the big contract. Does anything change? But I think Andy Dalton's a better quarterback than Joe Flacco. And A.J. Green helps things a lot.
It may change down the road, but I think at this point they haven't necessarily felt too much as far as negative consequences for giving Dalton more money.
No.
Whereas the Ravens actually sort of have.
Right. Well, like I said, it's hard to tell. You don't know anything till, like you said, we get down there. And I do think that Eifert is going to help them a lot at the tight end position. Nothing against Jermaine Gresham, but
Is he even on them anymore?
I don't know if he's with them. I'm talking about in past years they've had
Okay.
Gresham, but I do think Eifert is going to help the receiving game there some, because they did lose some pieces at wide receiver. So
Though having A.J. Green is always helpful. And
yeah, I mean,
Giovanni Bernard's definitely come along
yeah,
towards the end of last year.
and he really developed his pass catching ability for Dalton.
The defense is good. I mean, there's really like I can't imagine possibly picking a team other than them in this division.
Yeah,
I
agree
mean,
with that.
God bless anybody who's trying, but it would be difficult.
Yeah.
Speaking of other teams in the division that'd be difficult to pick to win the division, the Cleveland Browns.
Cleveland Browns. Oh man, I think you probably know where mine's going to go with this.
I have a general idea.
Start Brian Hoyer. Johnny Football takes over. Then all hell breaks loose.
That is a hot take right there.
Yeah,
Man.
and it's not in the good way. Hell breaking loose.
All right. So here's mine. Manziel, Hoyer, Without Gordon means little. Still awful and bland.
Yeah.
I would say we both seem to have a theme here, which is that we both seem to think that there will be a quarterback controversy. There will be playing time for both Johnny Manziel and Brian Hoyer, and that this team is going to suck either way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately the story with the Cleveland Browns is going to be the media frenzy over the quarterback controversy. But can you really call it a quarterback controversy when your team is terrible? I mean, they're as much as we want to talk about their defense has the potential to actually be an okay defense.
Yeah, the defense is okay.
But they are so crippled and just terrible offensively.
Let's consider who their receivers are going to be now that Josh Gordon's going to be out for the year. Jordan Cameron will be their top pass-catching threat as a tight end. You have Greg Little. I got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
It was the day after they drafted Manziel too that the Gordon suspension came down, and they kept not drafting a receiver, and it really could. I mean, maybe the guys they drafted will be good. I don't know, but the fact they don't have a receiver is going to hurt them.
Right,
a lot.
and I think in their offensive line, I mean, other than Joe Thomas, who's a pretty good left tackle.
He's been good for a while. I'm trying to think of who the top receivers are in college. as far as who they could be targeting next year. Because if they had a top receiver to go with Gordon and Cameron, they could be good down the road.
Yeah, I don't know if a guy like Amari Cooper or...
Yeah, Cooper would be up there, I think. But regardless, this year is not looking promising.
I mean, a 3 or 4 win season, you might look back and say that's a success given what you had at the start of the year.
I have a hard time imagining a scenario in which they don't finish last in the division.
I agree. I think.
Okay, so next we have the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Take it away.
All right. Sticking with the quarterback. Big Ben leads offense. Bell hits his sophomore slump. Disappointing year.
Called a contender, seemingly out of habit. 8-8 type team. I have to say I agree with the sentiment as far as Le'Veon Bell hitting a sophomore slump, because it seemed like a lot of his production last year was scoring touchdowns, sort of clustered together around the same time. And there's a lot of guys out there that can score 1-yard touchdowns. He hasn't really
Mike Allstott made a career off it. Now, granted, he's a blocking fullback as well, but more known as a rushing guy. Jerome Bettis, at the end of his career, was a guy who could get you 1-yard touchdown runs.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell really hasn't shown too much as far as explosion. As far as the passing offense, you have Ben Roethlisberger, you have Antonio Brown. Beyond that,
you lose Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're counting on a lot of unknowns.
And I think I agree with you when you say 8-8 type. When I say disappointing year, Steelers have been one of those teams that you know from year to year you pretty much expect a 10-6, 11-5 year.
And they were around 8-8 last year. Like this has sort of been happening for a while. Like I feel like people see the name Steelers and they think, oh, the Steelers can't be a bad team. Well, I don't think they're going to be a bad team, but I don't think they're going to be a particularly good team either.
Yeah, and I think too, going back to Le'Veon Bell for a second, I guess we don't know what could happen with the whole driving with marijuana in the car with him and Blunt.
Well, his backup also got it, so I guess that'll help him in terms of his standing on the depth chart. He's not going to be, hey, we're going to bench you for the guy that you got caught with.
Right,
probably.
But unfortunately, if they decide, which the Steelers in the past have been a no-nonsense type organization, they're pretty old school. I don't think.
Well, you could argue other than Roethlisberger. But
well,
it's an apple and orange.
You say, but you may, but you don't want it to get out of hand, and you wonder about a guy if that's what he's out doing.
What his what
it was commitment necessarily is going to be his focus.
Well, he had a couple of infractions, which is kind of like if it had happened one time, I'd be willing to say, okay, well, he was just being a knucklehead, whatever. But it's happening a couple times, and makes me sort of wonder, like, just stay at home and do it. I mean, it doesn't seem to be a whole lot of commitment to just avoiding getting caught.
Inside, you can be smart enough to have somebody else drive. You can afford someone to drive you.
I mean, the NFL actually has a program where they're able to, like, if you're in the NFL, you have a number to get, like, a taxi service, and it's paid for by the NFL to avoid incidents like this. I guess guys don't want to be using it because then the team might find out that they were out partying, but it's not a good situation there. But regardless, I don't think they're a playoff team either.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement. Bengals win the division running away.
And they get the one playoff bid out of it.
One playoff bid.
Yep. All right. So next, I would like to apologize in advance, but we do have to talk about the AFC South.
Oh, gosh.
All right.
Can we just say the Indianapolis Colts and move on? Or
we cannot.
Okay.
Houston Texans.
Quarterback questions. Arian Foster returns. Injury reserve.
I'm convinced Arian Foster's going to have a huge year because I had him in fantasy last year, and this year I have Andre Johnson. So they're going to find some way to screw me once again. All right, here's mine. Never were this bad. Everyone healthy matters. Clowney means playoffs. I'm throwing it down. I'm saying Houston makes the playoffs.
Really?
I don't think they're going to win the division, but I do think they're going to get a wild card bid. And I believe that what is going to happen is, okay, first of all, they had a lot of guys hurt last year. And the year before last year, and a couple years before that, they've been a really good team. I'm not saying everyone stays totally healthy, but enough guys stay healthy that'll be an improvement. The defense 2 years ago was probably in the top 5 in the NFL, and they just added Jadeveon Clowney, who is really, really good. To use the technical term.
Yeah. Freakish athlete.
It's going to be an interesting situation with him and Watt, just to see what happens defensively, because I think J.J. Watt might be the best. I think he's the best defensive player in the NFL, and I think that Clowney's not quite as diverse of a skill set because he's more of just a straight pass rusher, whereas Watt has a ton of deflections to go with it. But regardless, I think that this defense is going to be pretty strong. I think that the offense is going to be a lot better than they were last year. I don't even care who their quarterback is, even knowing that it might be Ryan Mallett now. I think that this is a playoff team.
I mean, no questions about their defense. I think they have a really good defense as long as they stay healthy. Clowney only enhances that defense. It's just the offensive firepower. I mean, so your 3 quarterback options, if you throw Mallett in there, Mallett, Fitzpatrick, or Yates, is that...
I don't think Yates is with them. I think it's... They drafted somebody, I think. Okay, the fact that we don't know who their quarterback options are probably says enough.
I know Schaub's gone.
Yeah, and yes, I am picking a team that I don't know their quarterback to make the playoffs.
I thought Fitzpatrick was initially penciled in as a starter.
Yeah, he's going to start the season as a starter for sure.
Which, hey,
he went to Harvard. I'm not sure if you knew that.
Yeah, he went to Harvard, and his first win as a quarterback, I believe, was the come-from-behind win for the Rams at Houston, hitting Kevin Curtis on a 50-plus yard screen to win the game in overtime.
Those were the days.
Yes.
The days of Ryan Fitzpatrick and Kevin Curtis we're now longing for.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming for the Rams. But,
yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the
move on.
The Colts. Go for it.
Luck's best season yet. Trent Richardson disappoints. Mathis will be missed. Talking about his suspension to begin the year.
I forgot about Mathis, but yeah, that's okay.
I mean, you forgot about the reigning defensive player of the year in the NFL? Or you forgot that he got suspended?
Look, I'm a Rams fan, so we've been convincing ourselves Robert Quinn won that stupid award for the last few months. I'm not thinking about any other players. All right, here's mine. Andrew Luck's cakewalk. Even if he's not yet great, he won't need to be. Which is a bit of a confusing verbiage there, I'll admit. Let me put it this way. I think Andrew Luck might be getting a little bit overrated in some circles, but I don't think it necessarily is going to matter when it comes to this division. The thing about Andrew Luck is that he'll take a couple games off here. Not that he's not trying or anything like that, but he's having a couple games off here or there.
We saw the St. Louis game last year.
Yeah, where the production's just not there. But he also has those moments every third game or so where you see him and you think this guy is going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He hasn't quite put it together. I think he's going to get incrementally closer to putting it together. I just don't think he's in that upper echelon of quarterbacks yet. I think he's far and away the best quarterback in this division, but this is also a division where it's entirely possible that the second best quarterback is Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
It's not the toughest division to be the best quarterback in.
No, it's not. They win the division.
Yeah, they'll win the division, and then I have Houston beating up on Tennessee and Jacksonville in order to help guide their way in an overall last place schedule, which means they'll play the Raiders and stuff, and they'll get their way to the wild card. Anyway, though, let's move on, unfortunately, to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I don't even know if this is true anymore, but I have Henny starts the year. I believe he was named starter back in March. Henny starts the year, but halfway through the season, he's still the QB. I don't think Bortles is going to play this year. I think they'd be dumb to play Bortles this year. The season's done anyway.
Yeah. I don't think much of Bortles either. I'm still amazed at the fact that he was the top quarterback taken. I feel like you had Teddy Bridgewater available, who I think is the best of the quarterbacks, and who I think was the safest pick. And you had Manziel, who isn't as safe of a pick, but there's always the chance that he is just incredible.
And he sells you tickets.
True, which Jacksonville can always use help with. And then you have Bortles, who he had a really good bowl game against Baylor, but a lot of people have good games against Baylor's defense. So
it's true.
It's hard to get too excited. But here's mine anyway. Bortles gives some hope, hopefully a tame amount. Jags are still awful. I say a tame amount because if we're getting too excited, and by we I mean Jaguars fans, which we're not, but we'll say we anyway. But if Jaguars fans are getting too excited about Blake Bortles, they're in for a really rough go at it.
It really makes you wonder because, okay, when you look at it, the thing on paper, Bortles is your stereotypical, probably best. He's the tallest of the guys we mentioned. Kind of has the quote-unquote prototypical size.
Yeah.
The exact same reason they took Blaine Gabbert, because he had the prototypical size.
Correct.
And now I realize this is a different regime with Gus Bradley.
I do think, to be clear, that Bortles is better than Gabbert. Well, I don't necessarily think he's so much better than Gabbert that it makes him a good pick. I agree. I don't think the fact that he's bigger than Bridgewater or Manziel really justifies the pick, but...
Yeah. And, I mean, I think a thing, too, that will... might get over something. The one member of their team, if you necessarily went to their office, like, hey, I'm going to take that guy, they don't have anymore. They'll have Maurice Jones-Drew.
They have Toby Gerhart.
Yeah. Who fantasy leagues still predict is going to do way better than he should. But
one of my favorite sayings in sports in general, I've been using this a lot lately, so if I'm being redundant on top of everything else I say, so be it, but the best way to improve your stock and the best way to gain favor among fans is to never actually play. Toby Gerhart really hasn't played very much. He was a good college running back, but there really weren't a whole lot of people thinking he was going to be a good pro running back. But the fact that he hasn't played makes people think higher of him. In the same way that the Texans traded for Ryan Mallett and Texans fans got excited. The fact that Mallett hasn't played gets people thinking that he's good.
It's the misconception that if you don't play because you have a really good player in front of you, you must be a better backup.
Which is, often that's the opposite of the truth. They're going to have a bad backup because you're never going to play him. Now, I don't know what Gerhart is or isn't. I don't think he's going to be better than Maurice Jones-Drew in his prime, and Maurice Jones-Drew in his prime was generally on pretty bad Jaguars teams.
Yeah, but I don't think we're talking about a Kenneth Darby kind of guy either. I think he'll be a little, better than that.
I forgot about Kenneth Darby's existence until this very moment, but it's here now. All right, we've talked enough about Jacksonville.
Yeah.
All right, Tennessee Titans.
All right. No, this is a bold tweet, or haiku Twitter moment here we could have.
You saved that one nicely, calling it a tweet. Go ahead.
Yeah. Bishop Sankey will, and I put will in here twice because I just realized I screwed this up. Bishop Sankey will win Rookie of the Year this upcoming year.
You can kind of use the two wills as being sort of an emphasis.
Emphasis point. Maybe that's what I was thinking.
Will.
I wrote these 2 weeks ago, so cut me some slack.
All right. Tennessee, who cares? Boring QB, coach, so on. Not bad, just boring. This reflects my overall sentiments on the Tennessee Titans, which is that they are the most boring team in the NFL. They were the most boring team in the NFL last year, and they had Chris Johnson. I don't care. I have nothing to say about this team.
Yeah.
They're so boring. I don't care about anything.
They don't make the playoffs.
Correct. The worst thing about watching the Titans last year was I went to the Titans-Rams game, and the Rams lost to this horrible, boring team.
Quarterbacked by Jake Locker.
I feel bad that I used the word ambient to describe the Dolphins, because the Dolphins are the greatest show on turf by comparison. We need to move on. I'm going to fall asleep. Okay.
Yeah, let's...
All right. So the first team alphabetically for the AFC West, is the Denver Broncos.
Denver Broncos. Will they get revenge? The sensible answer to that question is, nah.
Okay. All right, so here is mine. No Sean, no prob. Regression's inevitable, but still a dynamo. I like that nah.
Yeah.
A nice touch to the haikus.
I think so. I like to bring a little bit of my flavor with it, whenever I do this. And when I say get revenge, we'll talk about this later with the Super Bowl picks. Basically, all that means is I don't think they're going to
win the Super Bowl
or beating Seattle. They're still going to be dang good. They're a dang good football team. Peyton Manning's a dang good quarterback. And I think Monty Ball is going to have a better year.
Okay, yeah. The reason I said regression's inevitable is because the safest thing in the world to say for previewing football this year is pointing out that you don't think Peyton Manning's going to repeat his 2013, which is basically a way of saying my prediction is that Peyton Manning is going to throw fewer than 55 touchdown passes.
You mean
you don't say.
He won't throw 7 week 1?
I'm not saying he won't, but it's a fairly safe prediction to guess that it's probably not going to happen. So, I mean, I don't think the Broncos are going to be as good as they were last year in terms of being literally the best offense in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
But they can still be the best offense in the NFL this year without being that. And they're going to be, if not there, really close to there. And I sort of agree on Monty Ball in the sense that I don't think that the loss of Sean Moreno is going to be a problem because this isn't really a team that runs the ball that much anyway.
It's the Peyton Manning offense. So.
I mean, from a pure looking good perspective, it's a great situation for Monty Ball or for Ronnie Hillman or whoever they're going to give the ball to because they're not going to exactly be stacking the box to stop a team that still has Peyton Manning, Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker. They now have Emmanuel Sanders, Julius Thomas. They have a lot of weapons.
Yeah.
So are you saying that they are they going to win the division?
Yeah.
I will agree with that one. Although this is a division that had 3 playoff teams last year. So, though if I've done my math correctly, we've both only had 1 wild card so far. So we're both picking a wild card out of this division. All right. Next up is one of those teams who was a wild card last year, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs. All right. Charles MVP will make playoffs this year with first-round exit. So my pick has obviously been revealed for the other team.
So it seems like you're picking them to have the same fate they had last year, which is they make it as a wild card, they lose in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
And Charles' MVP is...
I mean, it's not an absurd pick, but
no.
I mean, the guy does it all. He can catch passes, and when he gets in the open field, he is explosive.
That he is.
You know, when he doesn't suffer season-ending injuries.
Will you shut up already? No. We're not going down this road again.
Good thing I was going to leave it out, did you?
Some of us may or may not have taken Jamal Charles pretty highly in fantasy drafts in 2011 and proceeded to have a pretty terrible season as a result of it. I don't have him this year, though, so we're not going to talk about that.
Yep.
All right.
Had to get a jab, and I apologize.
I feel like this is sort of slowly morphing into a referendum on our fantasy league and our general anger and rage that's built up over years.
We apologize. This is just how John talk when we get together.
Yeah. We got to figure most people listening are probably in the fantasy league anyway. This is just kind of how it works. But,
yeah, that's true.
But anyway,
hi guys.
Let's
hear the haiku, bro.
I have a Chiefs haiku. How about that Indy? Their hot start's long forgotten. Not awful, not great. The Chiefs got off to an incredible start last year, largely due to a series of games in which they really didn't face a lot in terms of tough quarterback play, faced a lot of teams that had injuries. They kind of, towards the end, were revealed to be sort of an average team. They were a team that had a good defense. They had an offense that when Jamal Charles got going was fine, but wasn't even so great because their passing game wasn't too much. I don't think this team's going to make the playoffs. They're not going to finish in last place in the division. We'll get to them with the next one. But I think they're about 8-8 or so. Like they'll be in the mix. But I think that a team dedicated mostly on Dwayne Bowe and maybe somebody else. I mean, Jamal Charles, I guess, would be the other one, but not a lot as far as wide receivers. They still have Moeaki, I guess. I mean, Alex Smith is quarterback. There's a lot of kind of...
And Bowe's suspended at least the first game, I think. It's either the first one or first two.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks about their offense. Their defense is fine, but I think their defense also beat up on a lot of bad quarterbacking.
But you have the coaching too. I mean, Andy Reid is
I believe in Andy.
I would say Andy Reid's a great coach. But
I believe in Andy Reid. I don't know if I'd put him in that great or elite category.
I don't know if I would say elite, but I would say he's a great coach. Fat man pride.
He's fine. And again, as I mentioned him before in listing other great fat coaches, there's quite a few of them out there. There's no reason to discriminate against them. I just don't think his personnel is necessarily all that great.
Yeah.
So anyway, speaking of not that great personnel, the Oakland Raiders are next.
Raiders, all right. Schaub and MJD make this team better, but they still finish dead last.
I was hoping you were to say it was going to make this team better because this is 2010, but
yeah. Hey, you know I'm like the biggest Matt Schaub lover there is. I mean, this is the first year in forever he hasn't been on my fantasy team.
I mean,
this is a backup.
I mean, biggest Matt Schaub fan is it's a relative term.
Not very hard to attain, but
yeah. It's sort of in the same way that I might be the biggest Houston Texans proponent ever because I think they're going to sneak into a wild card spot and probably lose in the first round. It's all relative. All right. Realistically planning, maybe 4-12. I'm saying that they're boring, but I'm actually not using it as much of an insult with the Raiders because I think that a lot of what they're doing is actually planning for the future. You know, this is a team that a couple years ago traded 2 first-round picks for Carson Palmer, which is one of the most insane things I've ever seen an NFL team do. This is a team that used a supplemental pick on Terrell Pryor, who was perfectly adequate last year and then got released, which I think shows that they didn't really have a plan for him. They just knew that they'd get a headline by drafting him. They picked Khalil Mack in the first round, which is a boring, safe, but overall probably good pick.
Yeah, I mean, there were people who said he was the best player in the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a dynamite linebacker, no doubt.
And this team's not very good. This team's not going to be a legitimate contender for anything other than maybe the first overall pick. But what they're doing, I think, is good because rather than doing something like trying to trade for Carson Palmer in order to try to go 6-10, they're actually looking forward and seeing that they're not going to get out of this mediocrity they've been in for a dozen years overnight. They have to build towards something. But they're finishing in last place.
Yeah, they're finishing. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add. I think, you know, like I said, I think for the first time in forever, they're actually going to try to build a team and not, you know, draft Darius Hayward-Bay with their first round pick. But
that was perhaps not the smartest move.
No.
All right, so the San Diego Chargers.
San Diego.
So you don't have a playoff pick left.
I don't have a playoff
and I do,
pick.
So I wonder where this is going.
Well, basically, and I want to preface this all by saying I really like the Chargers.
Oh, this isn't part of your haiku?
No, this is part of my.
Okay.
I really do like the Chargers, and so this season will be the best one Phillip Rivers has ever thrown down. And he's thrown down some pretty good statistical years.
I have a pretty Phillip-centric haiku myself.
Yeah, but you love Phillip Rivers. We know this.
Please respect Phillip. Not thrilling, but lights it up. Legit playoff threat. I think there's such a legit playoff that they're going to make the playoff, obviously.
Yeah. And I think they will battle Kansas City for that last spot.
It's amazing how much negative attention Phillip Rivers gets for seemingly no reason.
A guy who essentially makes the playoffs almost every year.
He grimaces a lot. I mean, that's pretty much it.
So do I.
And the problem is he's often compared to Drew Brees because he succeeded Drew Brees, and he's not up to Drew Brees, but he's good.
Yeah, but here's the fact. His numbers as a Charger were better than Drew Brees' numbers as a Charger.
That's true.
I mean,
I would say that part of that is just because...
personnel difference.
Yeah.
But, you know. Yeah, I mean, I like them a lot, but, you know, I think the
AFC is weaker than the NFC. There's no way I would pick the Chargers to make the playoffs in the NFC, nor would I pick the Texans to, for that matter.
Right. Dolphins, you know,
yeah,
would still make it. I mean, the Patriots, in my scenario, would have a harder time making it. But, yeah, I think definitely. I mean, there were basically two divisions that we both had uncontested in the AFC.
Yeah.
So. And
before we pick who we think's going to win the AFC, we're going to go with the NFC and then have our comprehensive Super Bowl pick haikus.
Yep.
All right. So we have lost my scrolling spot. Okay. We have the NFC East. We're going to start off the NFC East with the Dallas Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys?
Is that part of the haiku, or is that just a...
No,
okay.
that would be good.
I thought about starting.
My Cowboys...
I opted for content instead. It was a regret.
My content is really just generally how I feel about the Cowboys now. This team will never be great with Tony Romo and with Jerry Jones.
Romo to Bryant can keep a team viable. But that defense, though.
Oh, man. I just think, I think we're both on the same page. I mean, I don't want to knock on Tony Romo a ton like some people do. I do think he's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Shout out, to NO there on that one. But I do think he's a good quarterback. However, the bigger part there is Jerry Jones. I think he's. I mean, we saw it with super involved owners, Al Davis, what he's done. But don't want to speak ill of the dead, but he wasn't very good as an owner with the Raiders. He is too involved in making personnel decisions, and
I think the archetype of this model is also a deceased person, George Steinbrenner in baseball, who started off just by injecting a huge amount of money into the team, so it worked out. And then when other teams started paying money, the fact that he didn't really know what he was doing hurt. And then he hired an actual GM, and the team got better.
Yeah. And
however, the Cowboys don't have a GM.
Well, yeah, but the cap and stuff make it different.
Yeah, it just doesn't work anymore in the NFL to have just a super rich owner. I mean, there's ways you can. The problem is part of the benefit of having a rich owner would be having somebody that's able to pay a lot for personnel, as far as like coaching staff, as far as front office. Jason Garrett's his coach, and his front office is okay. I mean, it's him.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, I can't remember seeing the defense and I'm like, wow, this team could legitimately give up 30 points a game.
This defense might be the worst defense in the NFL, and it's from a team that some people are going to pick to go to the playoffs because their offense actually is good. But their offense isn't this good. They're not good enough to make up for that. Basically, the 2000 Rams had the best offense, like, maybe in NFL history, and they barely made the playoffs because their defense was horrible. This defense might be 2000 Rams defense bad.
And the offense is not near the 2000 Rams offense.
Offense is good, but they're not that good.
Yeah, they're not that good at all.
All right, so are you picking them to make the playoffs? No. I am not as well.
No.
Okay. Number 2, we have the New York Giants.
New York Giants. Hard to figure out. They live and die with Eli. Poor David Wilson.
Poor David Wilson, indeed.
I feel bad for that guy, legitimately.
I do, too.
But I do respect him for realizing that he has the rest of his life ahead of him as a 23-year-old guy or whatever. So, best wishes in his future endeavors. He could probably get an analyst job somewhere.
I haven't heard him analyze anything, but I hope you're right, just because it's an unfortunate situation. But he's making the right move for himself. You can't...
Walking's important.
Yeah. You can't just sacrifice the rest of your life to play in the NFL for a few years. All right, here's mine. Eli, Cruz, what else? Mediocre to just bad, they can be bad too. This is my way of saying that the Giants are going to go from being a kind of so-so 8-18 to being last place in this division. I don't... And this is a team kind of like the Steelers that are being picked to be fine, I think, out of name recognition.
Yeah, I mean...
And people will try to make any Giants foibles as a referendum on Eli Manning. I don't think that's even necessarily the case.
No.
Because he's... again, because the team's going to be behind because the team's just not good. I'm sure you don't. But as far as the defense, there's not a whole lot there to get excited about. The defense is just getting older. They're kind of holding on to what they had from 2007, which was getting a little bit older and kind of broken down in 2011. This team's just not good anymore. Eli and Cruz will have their moments, but not a lot of other receivers. Running back is very by committee.
Yeah, so I don't even know who.
It's Rashad Jennings is their number one, but
Peyton Hillis.
Yeah. So that's basically what we're looking at here. I don't think this team's good.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to make the playoffs?
No, I don't.
Okay. After you said yeah to they're not good.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So we got the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. Foles is the real deal. McCoy, one top running back, run away with East.
Will Foles regress? Sure. But McCoy's good for the East. Who can threaten them? So it sounds like we agree that the Philadelphia Eagles are
Philadelphia's good. I think I'm a little higher on Foles than you are.
When I say he's going to regress, I mean he's going to throw more than 2 interceptions.
Well, okay, yeah.
It's sort of along the lines of the Peyton Manning route, which is, of course, he's not going to be as good as he was last year because, I mean, obviously he's not going to be as good as last year because what he was last year was out of this world.
Right. But I mean, he gets Macklin for an entire year. Loses Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah. I mean, going from Deshaun to Macklin is a downgrade. But if Macklin stays healthy, which obviously is a huge if, it's not necessarily an enormous downgrade.
Yeah. So think we both agree they win the East.
Yeah.
Because, not necessarily because they're a great team, but you get 6 games a year to play these 3 teams. Those are pretty good.
I'm also big on Chip Kelly. I think the perception of a college coach can't win in the NFL, if Pete Carroll hasn't squashed that.
Yeah, he's kind of killed that here. But, yeah.
It just depends on the kind of coach. If you have like Steve Spurrier who goes in and thinks that everything that worked in college is going to work in the pros, then it's probably not going to work. But if you have a guy, even a guy who has a relatively radical system like Chip Kelly, but he's willing to adjust it.
Yeah, and we saw him adjust it last year.
Yeah.
It worked, and he's got some pretty good personnel. I think McCoy's the perfect back for his system.
I mean, not only do you have McCoy, but you have Darren Sproles, too. So you have, like, some legitimate, it could work out for them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can Sproles, even though he's on the team as a running back, you can split him out.
Yeah. This team has a really high ceiling. I don't think they're necessarily going to achieve that ceiling, but this team, they're the only team in the division that has the chance to be really good.
Yeah.
There's other teams that could end up getting a couple breaks to go 10-6 and sneak into the playoffs, but I think the only team that's really a threat to do anything is the Eagles, who I'm picking to win the division. Sounds like you are, too.
I am as well.
All right. Next, we have the Washington Redskins. Go for it.
Don't change the team name. RG3 gets himself hurt. Another bad year.
Deshaun is a start, but could have used first-rounders, just not a deep team. You can call Washington whatever you want. They're not good. They actually had people were surprised that they were as bad as they were last year, and I guess I'm surprised that they were, bad to that extent.
Yeah.
But they really fell backwards into a lot of wins in 2012. Like, the defense isn't that good. RG3, if he's healthy, is fine. Deshaun Jackson, maybe? Is that just a maybe?
I mean, I think he's a start, and he's definitely the perfect receiver for RG3 because in his first year plus a couple of games, the one thing I think that I've been impressed with him some is his ability to throw the deep ball. He throws a pretty good deep ball. He's got a good arm.
Yeah.
And that's what Deshaun, he's a burner.
Yeah. Deshaun's basically just going to run deep, and you're basically like playing Madden. You're just going to send all your guys deep and just hope for the best of luck.
Right. And I think that'll get him started. I just still think, and and he's shown it in preseason, he still doesn't know to slide or get out of bounds, RG3. He's going to turn the corner and try to outrun Robert Quinn, and Quinn's going to knock him out. I mean, I don't even think Washington plays the Rams this year, but you know what I'm saying. A player like that.
I think they would play the Rams because the Rams finished in last year, and so did Washington. So
so Robert Quinn ends RG3 season. There, I said it here on Audio Johnapedia 42.
Thanks for the 3 first-rounders, by the way, Washington. We really, really appreciate that in St. Louis. We've enjoyed having a lot of first-rounders draft kind of boring linemen, but whatever.
Do you think Gruden's system changes anything at all with them?
I mean, not really.
I think it increases RG3's probability of getting hurt because I think they're going to throw the ball more.
Yeah.
Which is dumb because Morris is a suitable back.
And I know there's a lot of people who are Redskins fans who like to talk about Kirk Cousins and stuff, and the idea that you would the idea that you wouldn't play RG3 because he might get hurt it's so backwards because it's based on the idea, well, we need to keep him healthy, but what are you keeping him healthy for if he's not playing? Are you keeping him healthy just for morale purposes?
That's like a lawyer saying, I'm not going to take the bar exam because I might not pass it.
Yeah, it's questionable, it's dubious, but I think no matter who their quarterback is, I don't think they're going to finish in last because I think that the Giants are worse, but they could finish in last. It wouldn't surprise me.
I will say they finish last in this division.
I have the Cowboys finishing in second, but I only have the one playoff team.
Yeah, one playoff team equals. That's what I have as well.
All right, so let's go on to the NFC North.
All right.
First up with the NFC North, we have the Chicago Bears.
Same every year. Will Jay Cutler play full year? Martellus Bennett.
Like the first 2 rhymed, and then you just said Martellus Bennett. Okay.
Don't you just get a nice visual with that? Oh, yeah, and then you just have Martellus Bennett staring at you.
It feels like for some reason it makes me think of the Wes Welker commercials for Old Spice, where they're just talking about Wes Welker, and then all of a sudden he's in a snow globe. Okay, yeah,
yeah,
sure.
Pretty much.
All right. Cutler is the truth. If defense improves, look out. Legitimate threat. Now, Jason here is laughing. Jay Cutler's good, guys. I'm telling you.
I don't disagree with you, but I laugh because of the flack we've given you about Jay Cutler over the years.
Here's the thing about Jay Cutler's not on my fantasy team this year, but he's been on my fantasy team like 3 years out of like the last 4.
And as I said here, I think the Bears. I think they're a good team. I like Cutler when he's healthy. It's just these quote unquote injuries, that he's been I think unfairly displayed in the media as.
I think it's a little bit like Sam Bradford, where people want to be like, oh, well, Cutler's a wimp. Well, he's not necessarily a wimp, but it doesn't mean that it's coincidence that he's getting hurt.
Right.
It's susceptible to it.
But like I said, I will say this. Bears, playoff team. I think they get a wild card.
Okay.
But, and the reason I put Martellus Bennett in there, it wasn't just because I needed 5 syllables. I think he is the key to this passing game because they have Marshall, they have Jeffrey on the outside. Which Jeffrey, okay. Jury's still out on how good he's going to be. But Brandon Marshall's an elite receiver.
Well, the thing is, I think Jeffrey was tremendously helped by the fact that he had Brandon Marshall on the other side of him.
Well, and assuming that he...
But Jeffrey was really good in college, too. It's not like he doesn't have skills.
Yeah. Well, and, assuming he has another year to learn from Brandon Marshall, work with him, I don't think... and just another year under his belt for receivers. We've seen how, there's definitely a transition for receivers in the NFL unless you're Calvin Johnson, who's just a freak. So... I will say that, but I think Bennett, being that, especially short yardage option in the middle of the field, and Matt Forte, good dual threat running back as well. So I think their passing attack, if Cutler stays healthy, it could be.
They have a lot of weapons. I mean, you saw what they did last year with Josh McCown. It's not as though you need Cutler helps, but you don't need Cutler to have the offense run. He's got a lot to work with. And you have them winning the wild card, you said?
Yep, wild card.
I have them winning the division.
Division champs.
All right, so nice. We both have them in the playoffs. So we're 2 for 2 on agreeing on playoff teams. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions.
Detroit Lions. All right. Stafford, Megatron. Don't forget about Reggie. Will defense perform?
It feels a little bit of and then there's Maud sort of at the end with Reggie.
Yeah.
Don't forget about Reggie. He's still there.
I love me some Reggie Bush. So.
All right. So Calvin Johnson's team is never an easy win, but they're not quite there.
See, I think
Calvin Johnson's pretty good. We agree with that, right?
Yeah, he's all right.
It's okay. Yeah.
But like I said, I don't know that the offense is necessarily a question for this team. I think they've made themselves better on offense, getting Golden Tate. You have a legitimate second receiver. As much as it pains me to say that Golden Tate is a legitimate second receiver.
He is.
He is, especially when your first is Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the other guys that have played opposite of... his second receiver last year was Nate Burleson, who just got cut by the Browns, who, as we mentioned, don't have receivers.
Yeah, I mean...
Just to give an idea of the level of receiver that...
honestly, their second... Bush was probably their second best receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, Pettigrew is disappointed, and I think
Ebron
Ebron's going to be a good addition for him. I don't think the offense question for that. They're not a Cowboys bad defense. I mean, they have that front four that can wreak havoc, but beyond that, I mean, if you block the front four, you can score a lot of points in this division with the Packers offense and the Bears offense. It's not looking good.
Yeah, I don't think the Lions are going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to be. I
put them in a solid 7-9 kind of team.
I don't think they're going to totally fall apart like they started doing last year.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens there. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers.
Healthy A. Rodgers, stout defensive front seven, class of division.
Curse of a contract. Rodgers great, but targets lost. Could make playoffs. Maybe. Kind of left on a note of uncertainty there. I'm going to say... First of all, that wasn't a haiku. I don't know why the maybe's even in there. Regardless, though, could make playoffs. That's the last.
That's only 4, dude.
I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. I have failed haiku Twitter with this 4x. All right, fill time. I'm going to rewrite the haiku right now.
All right. So I guess I'm going to fill the space here while he does it. Basically, I think me and John have a different opinion. I think that, like we've said with Tom Brady and his cast and people over there, Rodgers, he's just that good. Rodgers is really, really, really freaking good.
All right, good fill time.
Okay.
All right. I'm a very simple edit here. Curse of a contract. Rodgers great, but targets lost. Could make the playoffs.
There you go.
Nailed it.
He drilled that. I mean, class of division, I obviously, by this, think they're going to win the division.
Okay. Obviously would make the playoffs.
Would make the playoffs by winning the division as well. I really, really, really like their defense as well on the front end. A possible alarm thing, when they did play the Rams in preseason, their top cornerback, Shields, I believe, Sam Shields is their top corner. He's a starting corner for them.
Yeah. Was
burned twice by Brian Quick.
Brian Quick is a matchup nightmare, and don't you ever forget it.
Not as much as Jared Cook, but we'll get to that.
We will.
Basically, so that, but I mean, I don't think there's any question that Clay Matthews is a monster. However, now when I said stout defensive front seven, since I've written that, B.J. Raji is now out for the year.
Yeah.
That definitely hurts the running attack, but I still think that in this case, it's just, I think Rodgers is the best quarterback in the NFC. I'd take him over Breeze any day. A very underrated runner. When he has to run the football, he can move pretty good.
The correct term is deceptive speed. He has deceptive speed.
Deceptive speed.
Nobody has deceptive speed quite like Andrew Luck or Aaron Rodgers.
But, yeah, so I think they win the division.
All right. And I think they're going to make the wild card and not win the division. But we're 3 for 3 on agreeing on playoff teams for.
So we both have Bears-Packers making it out of the North.
And possibly the Minnesota Vikings.
No. Well, that's possible. I guess I better read my haiku.
All right.
AP, all the time. It's Adrian Peterson. Castle or Teddy? Another quarterback controversy in the making in Minnesota.
Strangely enough, in my haiku, I referenced a quarterback, but it's neither of the two quarterbacks you referenced.
Is it Dante Culpepper?
Playoffs with Ponder. Teddy's a huge improvement. Don't sleep on the Vikes. This team 2 years ago made the playoffs with Christian Ponder as their quarterback.
For the record, you did also mention Teddy in your haiku. Just saying.
True. I don't know what I'm doing anymore, okay. But anyway, they made the playoffs with Christian Ponder, who's not very good, and isn't even considered a threat to start for this team anymore. So who's to say that they can't make the playoffs with Teddy Bridgewater, with Matt Castle? Well, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to be a train wreck here either.
No, I don't think so either. I think
they still have Adrian Peterson, which is helpful. He's pretty good.
Yeah, receiver becomes an issue for them, though.
I'm not totally on board with Cordell Patterson personally.
I'm not either. I think he's still a little raw. He's not. He's a physical specimen. The dude's tall. He can jump. He's athletic.
Yeah.
His route running, his decision making, and I mean at times I think his effort's been in question.
And he was sort of drafted with that in mind, that he wasn't going to immediately.
Wait, he was a guy.
He lived up to not being immediately good.
Yeah, he definitely did. And Jerome Simpson.
Okay.
Suspended another 3 games.
Yeah. Well, even if he was around, he had that one really good catch with Cincinnati, and other than that.
Well, it wasn't even the catch; it was the flip that was the cool thing.
Yeah. That's true.
But yeah, I think they finished last in the division. 6-10 type team. I think the North is really pretty underrated for the amount of talent it has as far as top to bottom. Everybody talks about the West, and certainly they're better than the East because the East is awful. But yeah, Vikings last in the division.
I'm going to agree with that. I don't think they're necessarily an easy out because, I mean, it's happened before, and I'm still not sure how it happened. It took a generational sort of season from Adrian Peterson, but I watched it happen before my very eyes.
Yeah,
so
it could happen.
You never know. It's some sort of, is that Joaquin Andahar? There's some sort of quote about it. No,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Let's move on to the next division.
Yeah.
All right. NFC South.
Oh, yeah.
We will start with the Atlanta Falcons.
Atlanta Falcons. All right. You can expect that. Every game that they play will be high scoring. on both sides. That's a praise for their offense and a, oh my gosh, this is another not very good defense.
And that's a fair assessment from what I've gathered, but here we have it. Roddy and Julio, if healthy, are a huge force. Defense is awful. And the defense is awful.
The defense is awful.
Like this defense, they're down there with the Cowboys in terms of being a bad defense. They're actually a pretty apt comparison.
Yeah. I mean,
except where the Cowboys have DeMarco Murray and the Falcons have whatever's left of Steven Jackson plus a couple other guys who.
Yeah, but they have, if healthy, they have potentially the best 1-2. As far as, I mean, you have two guys that maybe aren't at a level like a Johnson or a Green, but they're both really good if they're healthy.
I mean, I still might go with the Bears for that, but yeah, they're definitely up there.
I mean, up there, yeah. Well, I don't know. Personally, I'll take Kenny Britt and Brian Quick, but yeah.
We'll get to that. We will get to the Rams. I fully intend to put a timestamp on for the Rams just to sort of acknowledge to people. If you guys don't want to hear us talk about haikus the whole time, just click here and you can get to the Rams.
All right, so Falcons, yeah, defense is a giant question mark, which really pains me having two Mizzou Tigers on there as a Mizzou fan.
They're kind of the non-question marks of the defense, in fairness.
Yeah, it's true. William Moore and Sean Weatherspoon are considered pretty good. Weatherspoon's had some injury issues, and I think Moore was actually injured as well last year.
I mean, the thing is, I never they were in college thought they were going to be great NFL players. The fact that they're like the two best players or so on this team says a lot about this team's defense.
Yeah. So, it's not in the cards for them.
No playoffs. No
playoffs. All right.
They're not going to finish in last, but they're not going to finish in first either, or second for that matter. But next up, we have the Carolina Panthers.
The Carolina Panthers.
The Carolina Panthers, who people seem to be forgetting, won this division last year.
Yeah. I didn't forget. The Cam Newton Show. Kuechly wins the MVP. Repeat as South champs.
You say Kuechly was going to win MVP? Didn't you say Jamal Charles earlier was going to win MVP?
I meant Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay.
I said MVP.
Okay.
So we'll say POY instead of MVP?
That's fine. I mean, you can say MVP all you want. Haikus don't necessarily have to be accurate. Haikus are more about the poetry of the words.
I'm saying defensive MVP, so he wins Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay.
Because a linebacker who's really good isn't going to win defensive player, or isn't going to win the.
That's fair. So you're overall though.
I am pro Panthers.
You're
pro Panthers.
All right, let's see if I'm pro Panthers. No Smith, no problem. Top 5D, Cam does enough. Last year was no fluke. I'm picking the Panthers to win this division.
I am as well.
And I've heard so much about how Steve Smith is. How the loss of Steve Smith means that Cam Newton doesn't have weapons. Steve Smith wasn't very good last year.
He hasn't been good the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good first year with Cam, but since then hasn't really done anything.
I mean, yeah.
Kelvin Benjamin as a rookie might be an improvement over Steve Smith. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be. Yeah. If he's a drop-off, he's not going to be much of one.
Like Cam Newton's weapons aren't great, but they've never been great, and they haven't really stopped him in the past.
But, yeah, and Cam Newton himself is, I mean, I think a lot of Cam Newton, obviously. I think more than just, I think he's really improved himself as a passer. He's really worked at it. Whereas when he was a rookie, his first couple of years, he relied on his legs a little bit more. But, I'm still a believer in their two running backs that they have. I still think Stewart and Williams as a tandem, they work.
You still have Tolbert, too.
And then you get it within the 3-yard line. You hand it off to Mike Tolbert, and he's going to.
Or just have Cam Newton keep it, for that matter.
Right, yeah, and put Tolbert in the block.
Cam Newton, I think, is my favorite of the running quarterbacks because of just his style of running. It's not quite like with RG3 where there's a lot of threat of him getting hurt just because Cam Newton is just huge.
Yeah,
he's a bull guys over. Yeah. He's not quite as fast as RG3 or Kaepernick or anything, but he's fast enough, and I mean he's played well. And we agree there. So now let's move on to the New Orleans Saints.
New Orleans Saints. Cooks is the real deal. Can they stop any offense? Ingram surprises.
Figure out Jimmy, and this team looks beatable. Good luck with Jimmy.
Jimmy Graham fan over here.
The thing is, if somebody can figure out how to stop Jimmy Graham, this team is going to be not very good at all. But that's a lot easier said than done.
I'm going to say, I mean, plausibly the only way to stop Jimmy Graham is to play nickel the entire game, have your nickel do nothing but watch Jimmy Graham, and even then you're still going to be in trouble because Jimmy Graham is going to beat your nickel back.
I'm actually amazed that Jimmy Graham hasn't just been treated strictly as a receiver in terms of defenses, because the guy doesn't block. Like, there's not a lot of threat of him playing a conventional tight end role.
Yeah.
He's basically a really, really good big receiver, which is scary because Drew Brees is a really good quarterback. So,
yeah.
I agree, though, on the defense. I'm not...
I mean, they were bad last year. I don't
see really what they did to improve substantially. And they tried signing Champ Bailey, and they've already cut him.
And they've cut Champ Bailey, so... Yeah, I don't...
Do you think they're going to make the playoffs, though?
I'm still in my head. I've been going back and forth over this second wild card spot because we already have one.
Yeah.
And I keep going back and forth, but I do think they get in as a wild card. I'm going to say that the Saints make it as a wild card. So, yes, that means I only have one team coming out of the West. But.
And this is going to be where we differ, because I don't think they're going to get the... Which is a testament to how strong the NFC is, because they're clearly better than the Houston Texans, who I have making it out of the AFC.
Right.
And yet I don't have them making it, because I don't think the defense is quite there. There isn't an easy out in this division.
No.
And, yeah, it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah.
Next, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who obviously you don't have making the playoffs because you only have one team left and they have to come out of the West.
Right.
But I could have them.
You could. I don't think you do, but I think you could. But I'll give my haiku take here. No real quarterback. Lovie Smith is the real deal. Need muscle hamster.
Solid drop of muscle hamster.
Figured it was good to work that in there.
Smith or Shiano, pretty easy decision. Improved by default.
Yeah.
They were a mess last year.
Oh,
they were a disaster last year. And they have Lovie Smith, who I have all the respect in the world for. They're going to be better.
Yeah, I don't think... And I do... by default, like you said, I think your defense improves tenfold just by having the presence of Lovie Smith over that defense.
Yeah, I think the team as a whole improves just by not having Shiano, who they seem to just despise.
Right. Shiano,
who I'm not sure why he got an NFL gig in the first place. It's sort of an okay... It was at Rutgers, so you have to kind of take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah. I do think they improve. Don't think they make the playoffs. I still think quarterback's a giant question for them. And in this league, you have to have at least a serviceable quarterback, and I don't know.
I mean, some people got excited about Josh McCown last year, but again, he was throwing to Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey.
Which Mike Evans could turn out to be a good receiver.
I actually think he will turn out to be a good receiver. I think he and Vincent Jackson make for an interesting duo. And I think Doug Martin, I don't think he was ever quite as great as a lot of the hype before last year suggested, because he had a lot of yards and touchdowns.
He had like two
mostly in one game.
Yeah, I mean, he had the one game the week I was playing against him. But I don't like talking about that.
We're not here to talk about the past.
Nah.
But yeah, this team will be better just because they were just miserable last year, but I agree they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. So.
All right. So now on to the NFC West.
Woo! Best division in football.
And luckily the last team we're going to talk about is going to be the Rams, which will be convenient because I think we'll have some things to say about them.
Probably.
But that's just sort of the way it worked out. First up, though, we have the Arizona Cardinals.
Great defensively. Michael Floyd is a big key. Battle for third place.
Docket loss crushing. Turns a perhaps great D good. Won't carry Carson. I'm going to be so bold to say that they will finish in last place, even knowing what I know about the other teams in the division, perhaps teams that would be contenders for last place, perhaps injuries that have unfolded. I'm, of course, talking about the Niners.
Yes.
But the Docket loss and the fact that Darrell Washington's out, and I think the Arizona D is the worst D in this division, and that's not even necessarily an insult. This division has incredible defense.
But still a top 7 defense, I would say, probably.
Let's put it this way, Arizona's defense might be the best defense in the history of the NFL. That was the worst defense in their division.
Yeah.
Because
they are a very good defense, but I'd say they're different from the way a lot of defenses are good. Like, okay, you take the Rams in the division, which would be the one that other people will probably put the other two higher, rightly or wrongly.
Some people,
rightly or wrongly,
may or may not be.
But the Rams, they sack the quarterback a lot, which makes them a good team. You don't necessarily see that a whole lot with them. I really, really like Tyrann Mathieu. I think he's going to develop even more this year and be better on the back end. But yeah, the Dockett loss, like you said, I think is crushing. But I say they finish a tie for last place in this division.
And I mean, this is a team that went 10-6 last year.
Yeah.
Is that right? It's weird to say that a team that was 10-6 that didn't really drop, they didn't really lose that much, but the injuries are going to hurt.
And it doesn't sound like you're a very big believer in Carson Palmer.
He's fine, but I don't think he's anything that I'm thinking is going to be a threat. I think Andre Ellington's also being a little bit overhyped on the basis of having a couple big games. Yeah.
I agree, but
the receivers are good though. I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
Fitzgerald and Floyd are good,
and it pains me for the second time I've complimented a Notre Dame graduate wide receiver, but
you're complimenting a lot of my fantasy guys, by the way, and I really appreciate it. Martellus Bennett's on my fantasy team. Michael Floyd's on my fantasy team.
You took Michael Floyd from me like 2 picks before I was going to take him, so thanks for that.
Glad to help out.
Yeah. But
yeah, I mean, the
division's tough.
The division is tough. And this is another team. I have them finishing last place in this division. They would make the playoffs of the AFC, too.
Yeah.
The AFC is just down.
Yeah, it's a down.
AFC has a couple good teams and then nothing else.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, so we have next up we have the San Francisco 49ers.
All right, talented depth chart. One looming question remains. Colin Kaepernick.
The Kaepernick deal implies an existent O, but defense carries. It pains me to say this as somebody who now has Colin Kaepernick in fantasy and is not thrilled about having Colin Kaepernick in fantasy, and also has a receiver. But the offense just has never really gotten it going. They had the occasional game, like the first game last year against Green Bay, they were terrific. They've had their moments. But they need the defense is going to be what has to carry them, and they have Navarro Bowman who's hurt, and Alden Smith suspended. It wouldn't shock me if this team missed the playoffs, as good as they are.
Yeah, and I will say I do have them missing the playoffs. In fact, they are the team that I have tying with the Cardinals for last place in this division.
Wow, you were not kidding.
The thing is, I really think, for two reasons I say that. One, I agree with you, the injuries, and I'm not a big believer in Kaepernick and in his ability to throw the ball. I just don't think, and Bolden really helped him out last year, made some great plays on throws that otherwise were not very good.
Yeah.
But, the injury bug I think is going to get him. And like we talked about, this division is tough. Teams are going to beat the crap out of each other. I mean, this is 6 games on the schedule where you're like, well, we'd be lucky if, they all win,
I don't know what you're getting at.
It could be a home win for every single team in this division. Everybody could go 2-2. If something like that happened, it would not surprise me.
Yeah. It wouldn't shock me if only one team came out of this division just because of that factor.
Yeah, and that's the factor I took in when I decided.
To not. Yeah. I have them making the playoffs, though. And I think Crabtree will help to make up for some of the loss of Bolden. I think the defense is still going to be really good, if not quite as dynamic with... I think Alden Smith's actually a little bit on the overrated side. I think a lot of what he's done is got other guys on the team have gotten blocked a lot, so he's picked up a lot of sacks. He's so good, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's been well documented that Justin Smith does a great job at holding 2 offensive linemen so Alden Smith can run around.
Justin Smith, product of the University of Missouri, player that in theory we should be rooting for, is a dirty cheater, but that's beside the point.
But he clears the way for University of Missouri graduate Alden Smith. I guess it's okay.
All right, so next we have the Seattle. They're the Supersonics. Who are they? Are they good?
The 12th man.
12th man.
Now I'm mad I didn't make the 12th man in my haiku.
I didn't either, and I'm actually quite proud of that. But Seattle Seahawks.
Seattle Seahawks. Running game all day. to repeat as champs, they need big year from Wilson.
Terrific defense, but a non-factor offense. A threat, not the threat. I think they're going to win the division. I think they're a good team. Their offense basically just consists of handing it to Marshawn Lynch and hoping for the best. They have the best defense in the league, but the whole defense wins championship thing, kind of, but an offense helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, would I surprise you if I said that I picked them to finish second in the NFC West?
That would surprise me.
Well, good. I didn't surprise you. They're winning this division.
Okay.
Because of that. And the thing, I really think this is the, you alluded earlier to the questions about Russell Wilson. Is he an elite quarterback? You look. No. He's not.
He's a fine quarterback.
I do think of these sort of, the RG3 Kaepernick Wilson. I think Wilson's the best passer of the three. Well, I think he's an underrated passer.
I almost think Wilson's in a different category than those. Those two are. I think Kaepernick especially is depending on his legs. RG3. It's kind of weird because Griffin he didn't run that much in college. Like, he ran some, but it wasn't like he was Michael Vick in college.
Yeah, but his offense was spread. He didn't have anyone in his face. He had time to throw 6-yard passes all day.
Wilson's not nearly as dynamic as far as running as these guys. He's a fine runner, but he's not, that's not what his game is. But he can throw. Yeah, and I think, like I said, now when I say to repeat as champs, I think I'm talking about world champs winning the Super Bowl. Yes.
They need a big year from him because, this team is a run-first team. And Marshawn Lynch, the dude is a monster. But, more and more, if Wilson doesn't begin to progress, they're going to be put in this 8-man in the box. And, if you get this team into 3rd and 8, can Russell Wilson beat you? Now, granted, he showed last year that he can.
He can, but it's not quite as comfortable as if there's a lot of other guys. As if you had, Aaron Rodgers needing to get a 3rd and 8 or something like that.
Right. But that defense, though, what's to say that hasn't been said about that defense? And it only continues to get better, and that's the scary part.
The thing about the Seattle defense is I think they're the best defense in the NFL, but I still think they're overrated just because it's gotten to a point of just a caricature.
Well, they're saying it's like,
this is a team that lost at home to Arizona last year. It's not as though this team is indestructible.
No, absolutely.
And as I said, they're a threat, but they're not necessarily the threat. It's not as though you can just crown them for the next decade here.
Well, if you want to crown them,
get out. I'm mixing
references.
But whatever. We all know what we're talking about. Yeah, I think. Okay. Anyway.
All right. Now to the.
Let's talk. Now to the big show.
The big show.
The greatest show, as it were.
The GSOT, in the year that they honor the greatest show on turf, the 15 year.
Bring it.
All right, St. Louis Rams, ladies and gentlemen. I had to change this one after, but it says, "Rally around Sean. Can the receivers perform? Tough NFC West."
I like that one because it's sort of abstract. I don't quite know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. But we'll explain that after I tell mine. O isn't this bad, but D isn't transcendent. Around 8 and 8. I have them finishing 3rd in the division. You have them, I guess, 2nd then?
2nd in the division. I got them. I had them penciled in at 9 and 7, finishing 2nd. I think these teams, the two teams, are going to finish tied for 3rd at 8 and 8. So it's not like
there's going to be a huge drop off.
There's not going to be a big drop off. Yeah. Seattle winning it at probably a 12 and 4, 13 and 3. I still think they're that good.
So we like Sean Hill then?
I do like Sean Hill. I do think. And I know me and you had talked about this before. We both think he's an upgrade over Kellen Clemens.
Sean Hill is so much better. I can't even begin to describe how much better Sean Hill is than Kellen Clemens. And
I truly think that they went out and they sought after Sean Hill, knowing that Bradford, A, might not start the year, or B, could get hurt again.
Yeah.
He's a guy. He's a veteran. He looked good in the preseason. I know you're not seeing a whole lot in preseason, but you don't want to see a guy come out and completely suck.
He wasn't Garrett Gilbert.
Yeah. Garrett Gilbert was
a guy I was strongly opposed to the Rams drafting, and then they drafted him, and then he did exactly what I expected them to do.
Now he's cut, so
yeah, I don't have to worry about it.
You have that. Yeah. But I think I like Sean Hill. Can the receivers perform? It's just okay. I've lived in I lived in St. Louis for a long time. I still follow St. Louis sports, even though I don't currently live in St. Louis. But everybody keeps talking about the upside of the receivers, the upside of the receivers, the upside of the receivers. I want to see it this year. Kenny Britt, I think, is a big help. I really like Kenny Britt if he stays healthy and he stays
that is a moderately big gift.
non-psychotic. He's kind of insane sometimes.
Yeah. He has a pretty team-friendly deal, though. So,
He does.
They're not necessarily investing the world in him.
No, they're not. And, and the thing is, everybody talks about Tavon Austin. I don't see Tavon Austin as that guy that's going to catch 8 passes a game.
Oh, yeah, that's not his game, definitely.
Now I want to see him have more flashes across different games like he had the 3 in that one game against Indianapolis last year. I want to see that. I do think that one of the best receivers this year is going to be Stedman Bailey, except he's out the first 4 games.
Yeah.
And
I'm not totally sold on Bailey just because I think there's a lot of guys on the team that have his style of play. You have Tavon Austin, you have Chris Givens that are sort of that sort of
Bailey,
smaller,
yeah,
quick
but the
guys.
thing that Bailey is better than on both those guys, I see Bailey almost being, if you want to compare it to the greatest show on turf kind of deal, which not doing by talent anything. He's sort of the Ricky Prohl. He has the best hands. He's a very sure-handed receiver. More sure-handed, I would even say, than Austin Pettis, who kind of fits that 5th receiver role most of the time.
Pettis has been a comparison to Ricky Prohl, too, except that he's a starter, whereas Ricky Prohl is a 4th receiver.
And the thing is, I think Chris Givens, I would say last year was a giant disappointment for him.
Absolutely.
He did show a few flashes. In the Cleveland game, he caught that little 7-yard pass that he took, whatever it was, 50, 60 yards to the house. Began to show that speed again a little bit. And Bryant Quick, I've been patient with him, but it's got to be this year.
I think the thing is, I think Quick, whenever they went to him last year, was fine.
Wait, he made a few. In the game at San Francisco, which granted was a forgettable game.
Yeah.
Late in the game, he went up and did what a guy his size is supposed to do. They threw him a fade route to the corner. He went up and got the ball. Now, he's shown better route running this preseason. I talked earlier about how he burned Sam Shields a couple of times in that Green Bay game. He looked like Sam Bradford's favorite target before Bradford went down.
Yeah. Well, for this style of team, having a guy like Quick and having a guy like Britt just makes so much more sense than starting a guy like Chris Givens. When you're a team that's going to be running the ball a lot, you have a tiny guy that's really not going to block too much.
Right, and and I think I don't know how Quick's blocking necessarily is, but Britt.
He's bigger, so by definition, he'd have to be better.
He's not going to be cut blocking every single guy around the edge.
Yeah.
So that's the receiving core. I think we're kind of on the same page quarterback-wise. Running backs.
I'm still not totally sold on Zach Stacy, I have to say.
I'm not either, and that pains me since I have him in 2 fantasy leagues.
I think he'll be fine for fantasy purposes because they give him the ball a lot.
Yeah, and he really excelled once Bradford went out last year.
But they need to go down the field with passing, and then once they get into the red zone, then you get Stacy the ball. Then you start giving Trey Mason some carries. It just isn't going to work as far as counting on a running back who's averaging less than 4 yards a carry to run it downfield.
Right, and see, and it's funny because it seems like around St. Louis and national media that there's been a lot of hype around Trey Mason, but from what I saw, I wasn't impressed with his ability to read the hole. He looked like he still definitely had some polishing to do.
Mizzou made him a lot of money. Let's put it that way.
They did.
Mizzou made him a lot of money because in the Mizzou-Auburn game,
he went
for anyone who doesn't follow Mizzou athletics particularly closely, Trey Mason basically got a Heisman candidacy based around that game.
Yeah, and it was
ugly.
It was bad, and I think he's a good running back, but I don't think I was pleasantly surprised last year in the limited time he was named. Benny Cunningham played all right.
Yeah,
I think Mason has a higher ceiling than Cunningham, but I would put Cunningham in. Cunningham,
I
think is the number 2 on the depth chart right now.
Yeah. Cunningham just kind of, to me, he's just a guy. He's almost like to running backs, but like an Austin Pettis would be to the receivers. He's there, and to have him on the roster is fine, but I don't necessarily want to depend on him. So he's Kenneth
Darby, is what you're telling me?
Oh, my. We can't keep having Kenneth Darby references
That's
here.
2, ladies and gentlemen, count them.
Are you getting paid by the Kenneth Darby reference? Because if you're getting paid for this, I don't know where you're getting the money from.
No, I'm not getting paid. I wish. Then my wife would probably approve of this more, but
I imagine so. Oh, what could possibly be disapproved of this?
yeah.
All right, but anyway, the Rams, I think they're going to be kind of along the lines of what they had been, which is they'll probably get off to a slow start. The defense, I don't have a lot of faith in early on, but they'll eventually find their footing like they have the last 2 years. Though I do fully expect Game 1 of the season to be a 9-7 Rams victory. Greg Zuerlein will hit 3 field goals. Adrian Peterson will get like an 85-yard touchdown run.
And that's it.
And that'll be as far as scoring.
Yeah.
All right. So, but we do agree
Don't make playoffs.
on Seattle winning the division. We disagree on who else will make it out of this division. I have San Francisco. You have nobody else.
Correct.
We have some more. We have some bonus haikus though, because we have to make our Super Bowl prediction.
Yeah.
Fire away.
All right, here we go. Super Bowl prediction haiku. Peyton. Wait, I messed that one up. Peyton gets back again.
That's too many. Okay.
Peyton back again.
Okay.
And again, he disappoints. Panthers win it all. Panthers over Broncos, 31-28.
I'm not doing a score prediction. That scares me. Here's my overall haiku, though. Broncos beat Bears. Offense wins championships. Is Peyton elite? I say this, of course, jokingly, because, of course, Peyton Manning is elite, but
That's good to make fun of those people.
I like the idea, though, that leading into Super Bowl week, people will be saying, if Peyton loses another Super Bowl, does this mean he's not elite? Is the fact that he made the Super Bowl and lost, in contrast to if he'd gone 8-8 and missed the playoffs? It's all very silly to me, and I like to point out the silliness of it. However, I think the Broncos, in spite of playing in a much weaker conference, are definitely the best team in the AFC, and I think they're the best team in the NFL.
I think they're by far the best team in the AFC, and I would almost say they're probably a better team than the Panthers, but as we've seen, best team doesn't always win. So
I also like the idea of Broncos and Bears just because I want to see two offensively led teams, because defense wins championships is an overused cliche. Teams win championships. If you have a good offense and a good defense, that's better than just having a good defense.
it's true.
And I do think that the Bears' defense will be better than last year. So,
Very good. Very
all
good.
right. And we also reached out to Twitter to ask some questions. I don't think we got any more questions in, but I'll check real quick.
So we got to make them up on the fly.
Yeah. Okay, we actually don't have any new ones.
All right. So we got
So-
4 questions. I think we had, right?
Yeah. So let me pull up what those questions were real quick. The first question we got was from a former co-host of the show, Nick, who co-hosted the World Cup preview. He asks, who will finish 13th in rushing yards per game over the first 6.35 NFL weeks, minimum 50 rushes? And we're going to, of course, answer in haiku form.
Haiku form. That's a dumb question.
Agreed.
However, the answer is Sir Peyton Hillis.
That's a bold prediction, Peyton Hillis, because Peyton Hillis isn't expected to start. But
Why not? I mean, it's a stupid question. I can give a stupid answer, right?
look for Chris Johnson to put up the rushing yards just without TDs. I fully expect Chris Johnson in full Chris Johnson mode to put up a okay amount of yards and just not score any touchdowns.
That's what CJ2K does.
And he's on the Jets offense, who I don't expect to score a lot of touchdowns in general. So I feel okay about that pick.
That's probably
All right.
better than my pick.
All right, next one. Let me pull this up real quick. We got it from William Bowl on Twitter. Asks the question, who's your favorite fantasy sleeper this season?
One part I get to talk about fantasy. This is tough.
We've been talking about fantasy the entire time. What are you talking
I
about?
know. I was kind of saying that ironically.
Okay.
However, my sleeper this year, star rookie wide receiver, it is Brandon Cooks.
He seems to be a popular sleeper pick.
Mm-hmm. And I really think, I watched the guy. I thought he was drafted lower than he should have been. I liked him a lot in college coming out. It doesn't hurt when Drew Brees is going to be throwing you the football.
It does not.
And I've grabbed him, I think, in the 8th round or later in both drafts I've done so far. It might have even been more like 10th, 11th round I've gotten him. So I'm pretty happy with him, and I think he'll
And the Saints have always had a tendency to spread the ball around, too. So.
Yeah, they've never... Colston had that 1 year, and then since then he hasn't really...
Yeah. I mean,
still the top guy, other than Graham.
He's sort of nominally the top guy, though. It's just whoever's open, which is a pretty good strategy from a football perspective.
I agree.
When he is healthy, Michael Crabtree is dynamic. He could have value. As I mentioned before, I drafted Michael Crabtree in fantasy, and the thing is, he had a really, people forget how good his 2012 was. He
did have a very good 2012.
Bunch of touchdowns, bunch of yards, bunch of catches. He was hurt at the beginning of last year.
My question is with his quarterback. That's where my reservation would come in. But I don't think anyone should doubt his skill set. He's a dynamic.
Though he did better with Kaepernick in 2012 than he did with Alex Smith. So
fair enough.
But the thing is, with them, because Bolden's getting older, I don't think he's going to get as much attention. Vernon Davis will still get his share. But I like Crabtree. I actually had Crabtree way, way higher than most people in fantasy ratings. I ended up avoiding him longer than my ratings would have indicated just because I figured nobody else had him that high. I had him higher than Andre Johnson, who I also picked. Let's put it that way. I am a believer in Crabtree.
I would have Crabtree above Andre Johnson, but that's more so because I really don't believe in the Texans quarterbacks.
I got you.
But,
what could possibly go wrong with a team in which I'm counting on Kaepernick, the Texans quarterbacks, and hopefully Roethlisberger stays alive, even though he's on pace to break the all-time getting sacked record by the time he's 36 years old. All right. We had another question from former co-host Nick.
And another great question.
Yep. Who will score the 71st touchdown of the season? Team, player, and quarter, please.
Team, player, and quarter. Okay. Well, I just did the name of the person. I'll have to give the rest of my prediction later.
You can explain the rest.
First of all, and John did the math on this, there's on average about, 73, 74 touchdowns scored per week in the NFL?
Yeah, this is a slightly older stat, so it might be a little bit higher now. But, yeah, I mean, you're looking at probably later in week 1 or early in week 2 for this touchdown to be scored.
Okay, so I will say, the man who will score the 71st touchdown, Andre Ellington. Running back, Arizona Cardinals. Correct. He does it in the third quarter of their Monday night late game against San Diego.
Okay. The second quarter of Week 1 Giants-Lions, Nick Fairley touchdown. Nick Fairley is going to intercept Eli Manning.
The defensive tackle interception touchdown?
Fat guy touchdown indeed.
Oh.
Nick Fairley will run it back, and it'll be touchdown number 71.
To quote John Madden in the movie The Replacements, I love to see a fat guy score. Because then you get a fat guy spike, and then you get a fat guy dance.
I don't know if he can top the Wisconsin kicker from yesterday, dance, but that wasn't really a fat guy. That was a slightly chubby guy.
That's a slightly chubby soccer player from Brazil or something.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So the next question we got was actually an actual question, unlike what Nick was providing.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
From Matt Bush on Twitter. Who will lead the Rams in receiving yards?
All right. You ready for this one? Stacy will lead the Rams in receiving. Just kidding. Kenny Britt will lead.
Okay. For a second there, I was very confused. So you're saying Kenny Britt? Okay.
I'll say Kenny Britt. I know it's kind of a lame pick, but
if he stays healthy, he very well could. I question his health, and that's why I didn't pick him. But here's my pick.
All right.
Tavon will emerge and put up tons of yardage. Go buy his jersey. Speaking of Tavon Austin's jersey. All right, guys.
$3. I have a $3.
As I've mentioned before, I've lost a fairly large amount of weight since last football season, and I own a Tavon Austin jersey. It's in very good condition. It's slightly used. I've worn it a few times, but I've taken good care of it. It just doesn't fit me. The only reason I'm not wearing it is because it looks like a dress on me. It just doesn't work. Very dynamic player. Make me your best offer. I paid $100 for it. I'm not looking for $100. Just looking to get some money back into
$3.
That's Jason's bid. If anyone has any more bids, let me know. If you're interested in a slightly used Tavon Austin jersey, I'm here for you. Got anything else to add?
Dude, bring it on. Is it Thursday yet? I'm ready to do this.
Anything you want to plug? Anything like that?
I mean,
haiku Twitter in general.
Haiku Twitter in general. I have been slacking a little bit. I've been.
Well, you're in town.
Yeah, I say I'm out of town, but follow me on Twitter at BradshawJP.
Great haikus all around.
Yeah, and to be completely honest, most of what I tweet now is haiku.
True.
particularly, and send me suggestions for haikus all the time.
And guys, if you're following me, which you probably are if you get the link to this, you should be following him instead. I'm terrible. I tweet way too much. He tweets way less, and most of it's haiku. It's considerable improvement. But if you don't follow me, John JF125, follow both of us, really.
Yeah, follow us both.
Good haiku exchanges going on.
Yeah, and it's good times. To give you a spectrum of my greatest haikus, I will tell you that my two most retweeted and favorited haikus both involve Colton Wong, second baseman for the Cardinals, and the fact that Wong is not a slang for something dirty.
I will continue to point this out to all of you guys. Okay, this isn't about football at all. Football segment's pretty much over. Wong is not a slang term for male genitalia. Wang is, dong is, but Wong isn't. Wong is just a guy's name, and it's not related to that at all. It doesn't. If you want to say Wong as a pun, along the lines of wrong, it makes sense.
All day, every day.
Yeah, absolutely, go for it. But no,
don't do it.
Don't do it.
This is a public service announcement endorsed by Haiku Twitter officially. Quit using Wong as slang for male genitalia. Please.
However, the fact that it's being used is allowing you to get a lot of free retweets and favorites.
It is true.
It's a start.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
Always a treat. Always a treat indeed. Hope everybody enjoyed, and keep haikuing forever and ever.
Keep calm and haiku on.
Don't say that ever again.
Okay.